In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, we thank you for walking with us so that we may better understand what your plan of salvation is for us. Bless us on our journey, because what we wish most in life is to return to you. We ask this as we ask all things through Christ our Lord. Amen. Our Lady of the Rosary. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Tomorrow is the feast day, October 7th, Our Lady of the Rosary. That's why I bring it up. Okay, let's first switch to the correct glasses. Numbers chapter 18, I believe it's verse 21. Is that correct? Okay. Tithes due to the Levites. To the Levites, however, I hereby assign all tithes in Israel as their heritage in recompense for the service they perform in the meeting tent. The Israelites may no longer approach the meeting tent. Apparently, in another strand of history, they could go in and out of the meeting tent at will. But in this particular strand, they're being told no more of that. That being the case, that leads me to believe that this particular story is probably ancient. It's probably Yahwist or Elohist, one of the ancient stories, because that sort of knowing God one-on-one and being folksy about it, that comes from the original stories. He's just too holy for us to transcend meeting him. That's a later development coming from the priestly caste. So what we're hearing here is the development away from anyone having contact with God via the meeting tent where the Ark of the Covenant is kept, to that only being the role of the priestly caste, the Levites. You can go into the temple precinct, the outside court around it that is fenced off from the rest of the city, but you cannot go into the tent itself. That's what they're saying here. Only the Levites are to perform the service of the meeting tent, and they alone shall be held responsible. This is a perpetual ordinance for all your generations. The Levites, therefore, shall not have any heritage among the Israelites. For I have assigned to them as their heritage the tithes which the Israelites give as a contribution to the Lord. That is why I have ordered that they are not to have any heritage among the Israelites. Tithes paid to the Levites. The Lord said to Moses, "Give the Levites these instructions. When you receive from the Israelites the tithes I have assigned you from them as your heritage, you are to make a contribution from them to the Lord, a tithe of the tithes." So 1/10 of 1/10. "And your contribution will be credited to you as if it were grain from the threshing floor or new wine from the press." Now remember that what you give to Yahweh is your first. That's why they're stressing it's the grain from the threshing floor, the first one that you sifted out. And the new wine, it's your first that goes to God in tithing in the Old Testament. Thus you too shall make a contribution from all the tithes you receive from the Israelites, handing over to Aaron the priest the part to be contributed to the Lord. For from all the gifts that you receive and from the best parts, you are to consecrate to the Lord your own full contribution. Tell them also, once you have made your contribution from the best part, the rest of the tithes will be credited to you Levites, as if it were of the threshing floor or of the winepress. Your families as well as you may eat of them anywhere, since they are your recompense for service at the meeting tent. You will incur no guilt so long as you make a contribution of the best part. Do not profane the sacred gifts of the Israelites, and so bring death to yourselves. Okay. Ashes of the red heifer. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "This is the regulation which the law of the Lord prescribes. Tell the Israelites to procure for you a red heifer that is free from every blemish and defect, and on which no yoke has ever been laid. This is to be given to Eleazar, the priest, to be led outside the camp and slaughtered in his presence. Eleazar, the priest, shall take some of its blood on his finger and sprinkle it 7 times towards the front of the meeting tent. Then the heifer shall be burned in his sight, with its hide and flesh, its blood and its offal. And the priest shall take some cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet yarn, and throw them into the fire in which the heifer is being burned. The priest shall then wash his garments and bathe his body in water. He remains unclean until the evening, and only afterward may he return to the camp. Likewise, he who burned the heifer shall wash his garments, bathe his body in water, and be unclean until evening." The fact that they were involved with the spilling of blood and came in contact with blood is what made them unclean. You came into the life spirit of another living being. And when the sun sets, the new day begins. So that's why they're clean as soon as the sun sets. That day of being unclean is over. Evening's here. The next day is here. So now you're clean. Okay, there was a footnote for outside the camp. Okay. Several fathers of the church saw in this prefiguring of the sacrificial death of Christ outside the walls of Jerusalem. So the one that's making everything clean and holy happened outside the tent city. Everything that makes us clean and holy happened outside of the holy city, Jerusalem. Okay, Myra, on your way out, could you shut the door behind you? Thank you. We're trying to keep your ilk out of here. Finally, a man who is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer and deposit them in a clean place outside the camp. There they are to be kept for preparing lustral water for the Israelite community. The heifer is a sin offering. He who has gathered up the ashes of the heifer shall also wash his garments and be unclean until evening. This is a perpetual ordinance, both from the Israelites and for aliens residing among you. So the way that they made holy water was by using the ashes of a red heifer mixed in with the water that they're going to use for ceremonial duties of making something clean, such as what you will find in the giant laver bowl outside of the tent of meeting and later outside of the temple. It's those ashes that are making it holy, set apart. You know, I did not come into this saying until I got here. This was totally rare to me. And I had to meet Randy Costa to hear this saying. And I think that's the reason. I'm bringing it up because of the red heifer. Having a red heifer must have been considered extraordinary. It was rare. It's not something you're always getting. And the joke apparently within the Latino world is the redheaded adopted kid. You know, where did we get this redhead in our family? Everyone else has jet black hair and brown eyes, and they get standout tans in the summer. And then you got this kid with a carrot top and freckles. So that the joke is, you know, he's the redhead adopted kid. And I just looked at him and said, that's all we had were redheads. You know, that's how you knew you were part of the family. You were yet another redhead. It all depends on what part of the country, what part of the world you come from. Use of the ashes. Whoever touches the dead body of a human being shall be unclean for 7 days. he shall purify himself with the water, and on the third day and on the seventh day, and then he will be clean again. But if he fails to purify himself on the third and on the seventh day, he will not become clean. Everyone who fails to purify himself after touching the body of any deceased person defiles the dwelling of the Lord and shall be cut off from Israel. Don't mess with this, they're saying. Since the lustral water has not splashed over him, he remains unclean. His uncleanness still clings to him. This is the law. When a man dies in a tent, everyone who enters the tent, as well as everyone already in it, shall be unclean for 7 days. Likewise, every vessel that is open or with its lid unfastened shall be unclean. Moreover, everyone who in the open country touches a dead person, whether he was slain by the sword or died naturally, or who touches a human bone or a grave, shall be unclean for 7 days. Oh, archaeologists have it bad. For anyone who is thus unclean, ashes from the sin offering shall be put in a vessel. The spring water shall be poured on them. Then a man who is clean shall take some hyssop, dip it in this water, and sprinkle it on the tent and on all the vessels and persons that were in it, or on him who touched a bone, a slain person, or a dead body, or a grave. The clean man shall sprinkle the unclean on the third and on the seventh day. Thus purified on the seventh day, he shall wash his garments and bathe his body in water, and in the evening he will be clean again. Any unclean man who fails to have himself purified shall be cut off from the community, because he defiles the sanctuary of the Lord. As long as the lustral water has not been splashed over them, he remains unclean. This shall be a perpetual ordinance for you. The idea of corrupting anything that comes in contact with it, that's what's going on here. So that something died, it's leading towards corruption, it's decaying, it's unclean. That can spread by coming in contact with. Same thing can be said about holiness. If you come in contact with something, it becomes holy, it becomes set apart. That's the reason why they're very careful of how the red heifer's ashes are prepared. You go outside of the city to some deserted place where you're not going to be spreading holiness all over the place, helter-skelter. You know, we want control over this stuff. One who sprinkles the lustral water shall wash his garments, and anyone who comes in contact with this water shall be unclean until evening. Moreover, whatever the unclean person touches becomes unclean itself, and anyone who touches it becomes unclean until evening. Death of Miriam. Now, you know we're moving deep into we're back in the story, because we must, no matter how it sounds to you, close to 40 years have passed. If Miriam is dying, we're getting close to the 40-year period being over. The whole Israelite community arrived in the desert of Zin in the first month, and the people settled in Kadesh. It was here that Miriam died, and here that she was buried. Water famine at Kadesh. As the community had no water, they held a council against Moses and Aaron. How strange. The people contended with Moses, exclaiming, "Would that we too had perished with our kinsmen in the Lord's presence. Why have you brought the Lord's community into this desert where we and our livestock are dying? Why did you lead us out of Egypt, only to bring us to this wretched place, which has neither grain nor figs nor vines, nor pomegranates. They're forgetting all about, they're giants, they'll kill us, we look like grasshoppers, and they're just going to step on us. Wah! They're the ones who said that. Here there is not even water to drink. But Moses and Aaron went away from the assembly to the entrance of the meeting tent, where they fell prostrate. Then the glory of the Lord appeared to them, and the Lord said to Moses, "Take the staff and assemble the community, you and your brother Aaron, and in their presence order the rock to yield its waters." Pay attention to this, okay? "From the rock you shall bring forth water for the community and their livestock to drink." So Moses took the staff from its place before the Lord, as he was ordered. He and Aaron assembled the community in front of the rock, where he said to them, "Listen to me, you rebels. Are we to bring water for you out of this rock?" Then raising his hand, Moses struck the rock twice, and with his staff, and water gushed out in abundance for the community and their livestock to drink. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you are not faithful to me in showing forth my sanctity before the Israelites, you shall not lead this community into the land I will give them." These are the waters of Meribah, where the Israelites contended against the Lord, and where he revealed his sanctity among them. All right, we need to take a moment with this one, because this is going to be the reason why Moses and Aaron die before going into the Holy Land and possessing the Holy Land. The reason is, when God told them to strike the rock once, they struck the rock twice. And that was enough to punish them so that they will not see the Holy Land. Now, that's lame. There's no other way of putting it to our ears. That is so lame. However, the theology behind it is this: nothing happens without God wanting it to happen. This is the theological mind frame of post-exilic Israel, how they're thinking after the Babylonian exile. So after 538 BC, they're commenting on something that happened 1,000 years before that through the eyes of a period that is yet to come. In that period, where the people will have the last word on these stories, they're seeing that nothing in the world ever happens without God having a purpose for it. So, this is how they got their heads around the fact that they were a covenantal people and they lost the land. How is it possible that we lost the land? How could we lose our king? How could we lose the Holy Land when we're in a covenantal relationship with God? Something was wrong with the covenant then. Did God renege on his covenant? Inconceivable. Inconceivable that God could have reneged on the covenant. Did we renege? We must have. It must have been us. And we didn't keep faithful. We didn't keep loyal. And that's why we lost the country. And so all of these laws that we are hearing in the books of Leviticus and Number is about getting it right. We got to make sure we get it right. And that's why they are so much on top of how to do the sacrifice right. We're going to hear the same thing when we get to the book of Deuteronomy, but it's going to be about the law. Getting it right, living an upright life so that we don't break the covenant. This mind frame is affecting how they see the death of Moses and Aaron. They couldn't just be old and tired. It couldn't be that this group of people wore them out and they just couldn't take one more step. There had to be a reason. Why is it that right up until this point, the greatest person that has ever lived for us as Jews doesn't get to see the Holy Land. If I were him, I would have been begging for death. Now it's water, God, again. It's water again, God. It's water again, God. Joshua's young. Let him take care of it. That would be me at this point. They can't buy that. God had to have a reason for Moses and Aaron checking out early before they get to see the Holy Land. And so what they come up with is he hit the rock twice when he should have hit it once. Yes, Florentino. Joshua. Well, the exceptions to that would have been Moses and Aaron and even Miriam, because they were not the ones rebelling. You know, they were the ones that were leading. The people were rebelling against those three. So this is what's getting really weird. The ones that led us are dying. And they were never the ones who were considered unloyal to God, because Moses and Aaron would have gone in and they would have staged a fight with whoever they had to stage a fight with in order to claim the land 40 years earlier with Joshua and Caleb. But they don't, it's the other people that this comes about with. So that's where the issue comes, that there had to be another reason. Because in their mind, Moses and Aaron should have seen the Holy Land. And to them, what's lame is they were just old and died before that. To their ears, that's lame. To our ears, striking the rock twice is lame. Edom's refusal. Now, Edom is a group of people, a country, a nation, but not really a well-unified nation at this point. They're just a group of people living south of what will be the Holy Land. And they're considered the descendants of Esau. And so this is Jacob's brother's children live here. Those are the Edomites, Esau's descendants. And we're back to red again. He was the red-headed kid in that story. And he sold his birthright for a pot of red soup, red beans. Remember? So I think that's what Edom means. Edom means red. So that's who we're dealing with now. So the cousins are trying to pass through. And so they're asking a request to pass through. And this is Edom's response. From Kadesh, Moses sent men to bring to the king of Edom with the message, "Your brother Israel has this to say, you know of all the hardships that have befallen us, how our fathers went down to Egypt, where he stayed a long time, how the Egyptians maltreated us and our fathers, and how, when we cried to the Lord, he heard our cry and sent an angel who led us out of Egypt. Now here we are at the town of Kadesh, at the edge of your territory. Kindly let us pass through your country. We will not cross any fields or vineyards, nor drink any well water, but we will go straight along the royal road." This is a caravan road they're talking about for trade. "Without turning to the right or the left," meaning we're not going to help ourselves to anything as long as we go. We're seriously just passing through. We're not going to maraud. "Until we have passed through your territory." But Edom answered him, "You shall not pass through here. If you do, I will advance against you with the sword." Thus the Israelites insisted, "We want only to go up along the highway. If we or our livestock drink any of your water, we will pay for it. Surely there is no harm in merely letting us march through." But Edom still said, "No, you shall not pass through," and advanced against them with a large and heavy armed force. Therefore, since Edom refused to let them pass through their territory, Israel detoured around them. The death of Aaron. Setting out from Kadesh, the whole Israelite community came to Mount Hor. There at Mount Hor, on the border of the land of Edom, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, Aaron is about to be taken to his people. He shall not enter the land I am given to the Israelites, because you both rebelled against my commandment at the waters of Meribah. Take Aaron and his son Eleazar and bring them up on Mount Hor. Then strip Aaron of his garments and put them on his son Eleazar. For there Aaron shall be taken in death. Moses did as the Lord commanded. When they had climbed Mount Hor in view of the whole community, Moses stripped Aaron of his garments and put them on his son Eleazar. Then Aaron died there on the top of the mountain. When Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain, all the community understood that Aaron had passed away. And for 30 days, the whole house of Israel mourned him. Victory over Arad. When the Canaanite king of Arad, who lived in the Negeb, heard that the Israelites were coming along the way of Atharim, he engaged them in battle and took some of them captive. Israel then made this vow to the Lord, if you deliver this people into my hand, I will doom their cities. Dooming a city means you offer everything up directly to God. That's what doom originally means. This is set aside. This is pledged to God directly. Doom their cities. Okay, doom their cities. Later, when the Lord heeded Israel's prayer and delivered up the Canaanites, they doomed them and their cities. Hence the place was named Hormah, related to the Hebrew word herem, meaning doomed. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, what we just saw there, why a place is named Hormah? We hear it's because of the dooming of the cities at this time. What's that called when we hear a story like that? An etiology. Etiology. How a place gets its name. It's a story of origin. The origin of the name of this place as Hormah is when the Israelites on the way through had a war with King Arad, and if they won, they promised that they would doom the city and send it right up to God. The bronze serpent. From Mount Hor, they set out on the Red Sea to bypass the land of Edom. But with their patience worn out by the journey, the people complained against God and Moses. Why have you brought us up from Egypt to die in this desert, where there is no food or water? We are disgusted with this wretched food. In punishment, the Lord sent among the people seraph serpents, which bit the people so that many of them died. The seraphim are angels in heaven. The seraphim's bodies are made of fire. A seraph serpent's bite feels like your skin is on fire. So that's the connection there. Then the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned in complaining against the Lord and you. Pray the Lord to take the serpents from us. So Moses prayed for the people, and the Lord said to Moses, make a seraph and mount it on a pole, and if anyone who has been bitten looks at it, he will recover. Moses accordingly made a bronze serpent and mounted it on a pole, and whenever anyone who had been bitten by a serpent looked at the bronze serpent, he recovered. Now, we use this big time in the Christian church as a foreshadowing of the crucifixion. It's actually a very important story for us to understand the crucifixion of Christ and the later salvation, because of what the people are directed to do in this story is what we're supposed to be doing today. In order to recover, they had to look at the vehicle that was destroying them. It was the serpents that were biting them and sending them to an early death. So if they looked at the vehicle of death, they got saved. Jesus on the cross, that was his vehicle of death. That's how they were getting rid of him. But the fact that he dies on that cross, he opens salvation for everyone. And for us to be saved, for us to be redeemed, we look at the vehicle of death. There's no running away from it. There's no getting around it. There is only through. That's extremely important for our own salvation. You look death straight in the eye and you come to terms with it. I know what you're up to, and I know what you're threatening. You're threatening to take me out, that I will be no more. Well, I'm going to stare you down. And you pass right through it. And you realize that death does not have the power it threatens to have. So whatever it is you're scared of, you face it. Whatever it is you run away from, move towards it. Whatever you're trying to maneuver around, confront it. The only way to life is to pass through the death. That's the message. Journey around Moab. Oh, wrong glasses again. Don't get old. The Israelites moved on and encamped at Oboth. Setting out from Oboth, they encamped in Ai Abarim, in the desert fronting the Moab on the east. Setting out from there, they encamped in the Wadi Zered. Remember, a wadi is a dry stream bed? Setting out from there, they encamped on the other side of the Arnon, in the desert that extends from the territory of the Amorites, for the Arnon forms Moab's boundary with the Amorites. All right, if you were to look at a map while we were doing it would all make sense. All of this can be, you can plot it out, and it will make perfect sense how you're traveling through here. As opposed to Luke's gospel. When you're reading Luke's gospel about the disciples moving through places, how did they get from there to there? Teleportation? Okay. Hence it was said in the book of the Wars of the Lord, this is a lost book. They're referring to something that is obviously a popular annal at the time, but we don't possess it anymore. It's either still buried somewhere or out of existence. So we don't know what they're referring to here. We just know the book exists. Waheb in Sufa and the Wadis Arnon and the Wadi Gorges that reach back toward the site of Ar and slant to the border of Moab. From there, they went to Be'er. It would be better if it were beer. Where there was the well of which the Lord said to Moses, bring the people together and I will give them water. Then it was that Israel sang this song, spring up, O well, so sing to it, the well that the princes sank, that the nobles of the people dug, with their scepters and their staffs. So this is actually a bit of allegory, metaphor. It's not as if the leaders of the people went out with their staffs and their scepters, which represented their power, and dug a pit with it. They went out with the staffs and the scepters, and they said to the people, dig it there. So don't get the idea that these high, glorious people wearing crowns actually dug the well. From Be'er, they went to Matana, and from Matana to Nahaliel. from Nahaliel to Bamoth, from Bamoth to the cleft of the plateau of Moab, at the headland of the Pisgah, where that overlooks Jeshimon. Victory over Sihon. Now Israel sent men to Sihon, king of the Amorites, with the message, let us pass through your country. You'll recall this. We will not turn aside into any field or vineyard, nor will we drink any well water, but we will go straight along the royal road until we have passed through your territory. Sihon, however, would not let Israel pass through his territory, but mustered all his forces and advanced into the desert against Israel. When he reached Jahaz, he engaged Israel in battle. But Israel defeated him at the point of the sword and took possession of his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, and as far as the country of the Ammonites, whose boundary was for Jazer. Israel seized all the towns and settled in these towns of the Amorites in Heshbon and all its dependencies. This is how it's going to look when we get from here into the book of Joshua. As they are getting people in battle, as they're confronting a certain people in battle, and they're winning, a certain tribe says, we'll make home here. And they settle there. And then the 11 tribes go on to a next place. There's another battle, and another tribe says, well, this will be home for us. And then the 10 tribes go on. Each time there is need for a battle to claim another territory, the settled tribes will get up and go to war with the unsettled tribes until all tribes are settled. So that's the agreement. You've already started tilling and planning a community for yourself in this particular area. Well, you got to put all that on hold so that another tribe can win its area. So that's the plan that we're seeing being put forth by the Bible as to how they get the whole country. Okay, where am I? 26, okay. Now Heshbon was the capital of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab and had seized all his territory, all his land from Jazer to the Arnon. That is why the poets say, come to Heshbon, let it be rebuilt. Let Sihon's capital be firmly constructed. For fire went forth from Heshbon, and a blaze from the city of Sihon. It consumed the cities of Moab and swallowed up the high places of the Arnon. Woe to you, O Moab! You are ruined, O people of Chemosh. He let his sons become fugitives and his daughters be taken captive by the Amorite king Sihon. Their plowland is ruined from Heshbon to Dibon. Ar is laid waste, fires blaze as far as Medeba. When Israel had settled in the land of the Amorites, Moses sent spies to Jazer. Israel then captured it with its dependencies and dispossessed the Amorites who were there. Victory over Og. This poor king's name is Og. Then they turned and went up along the road to Bashan. But Og, the king of Bashan, advanced against them with all his people to give battle at Edrei. The Lord, however, said to Moses, do not be afraid of him, for into your hand I will deliver him with all his people and his land. Do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon. So they struck him down with his sons and all his people until not a survivor was left to him, and they took possession of his land. Then the Israelites moved on and encamped in the plains of Moab on the other side of the Jericho stretch of the Jordan. Okay, chapter 22, verse 2, on the plains of Moab. Balaam summoned. Now, Balaam, this is fun. You're gonna love this saga of Balaam and Balak. Now, Balak, son of Zippor, saw that Israel did what Israel did to the Amorites. Indeed, Moab feared the Israelites greatly because of their numbers and detested them. So Moab said to the elders of Midian, "Soon this horde will devour all the country around us as an ox devours the grass of the field." And Balak, Zippor's son, who was king of Moab at that time, sent messengers to Balaam, son of Beor, at Pethor on the Euphrates in the land of the Amorites, summoning with him these words, "A people has come here from Egypt, who now cover the face of the earth, and they're settling down opposite us. Please come and curse this people for us. They are stronger than we are." This is pagan thinking. If this guy Balaam is a holy man and that the Lord speaks to him, then it's not that he's in a special relationship with God, it's he has power. It's magic. So if he has magic, he can curse these people that are coming. It's in his power. This is pagan thinking. This is not the way that we think of being in right relationship and staying in right relationship with God. This is about how you can use all this power that has been given to you the way that you can. Why am I doing it? Because I can. They are stronger than we are. We may then be able to defeat them and drive them out of the country. For I know that whoever you bless is blessed, and whoever you curse is cursed. Then the elders of Moab and of Midian left with the divination fee in hand and went to Balaam. When they had given him Balak's message, he said to them in reply, "Stay here overnight, and I'll give you whatever answer the Lord gives me." See, Balaam is playing by the rules. Balaam knows how this works, so he's saying, I just can't do it. I got to hear what message God's going to give me. So the princes of Moab lodged with Balaam. When God came to Balaam and said, "Who are these men visiting you?" Balaam answered God, "Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab, sent me this message. This people that came here from Egypt now cover the face of the earth. Please come and lay a curse on them for us. We may then be able to give battle and drive them out." But God said to Balaam, "Do not go with them and do not curse this people, for they are blessed." The next morning Balaam arose and told the princes of Balak, "Go back to your own country, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you." So the princes of Moab went back to Balak with the report, "Balaam refused to come with us." Second appeal to Balaam. Balak again sent princes who were more numerous and more distinguished than the others. On coming to Balaam, they told him, "This is what Balak, son of Zippor, has to say. Please do not refuse to come to me. I will reward you very handsomely and will do anything you ask of me. Please come and lay a curse on the people for me." But Balaam replied to Balak's officials, "Even if Balak gave me his house full of silver and gold, I could not do anything, small or great, contrary to the command of the Lord my God. But you too shall stay overnight till I learn what the Lord may tell me." That night God came to Balaam and said to him, "If these men have come to summon you, you may go with them, yet only on the condition that you do exactly as I tell you." So the next morning, when Balaam arose, he saddled his ass and went off with the princes of Moab, the talking ass. But now the anger of God flared up at him for going, and the angel of the Lord stationed him on the road to hinder him as he was riding along on his ass. Okay, now this may be the confliction of two different camps of thinking. One being that God's in total control and nothing happens unless God says it. And the other one is, oh, he thinks he could deny what I told him to do. In that second strain, he was told to stay home. But greed made him go. He was, in his mind, the way we could see him thinking is, I can't curse these people, but if these jerks want to give me a fortune for going there and saying I can't do anything for you, then let's just do it. I'm going to go home with a fortune. So we see a conflict between two different ways the story has been repeated over time. Okay. When the ass saw the angel of the Lord standing on the road with sword drawn, she turned off the road and went into the field, and Balaam had to beat her to bring her back on the road. Then the angel of the Lord took his stand on the narrow lane between vineyards with a stone wall on each side. When the ass saw that the angel of the Lord there, she shrank against the wall. And since she squeezed Balaam's leg against it, he beat her again. The angel of the Lord then went ahead and stopped in a passage so narrow that there was no room to move either to the right or to the left. When the ass saw the angel of the Lord there, she cowered under Balaam. So in anger he again beat the ass with his stick. But now the Lord opened the mouth of the ass, and she asked Balaam, "What have I done to you that you should beat me these 3 times?" "You have acted so willfully against me," said Balaam to the ass, "that if I but had a sword at hand, I would kill you here and now." But the ass said to Balaam, "Am I not your beast, and have you not always ridden upon me until now? Have I been in the habit of treating you this way before?" "No," replied Balaam. Then the Lord removed the veil from Balaam's eyes, so that he too saw the angel of the Lord standing on the road with the sword drawn, and he fell on his knees and bowed to the ground. But the angel of the Lord said to him, "Why have you beaten your ass these 3 times? It is I who have come armed to hinder you, because this rash journey of yours is directly opposed to me. When the ass saw me, she turned away from me these 3 times. If she had not turned away from me, I would have killed you. Her I would have spared." Then Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, "I have sinned, yet I did not know that you stood against me to oppose my journey. Since it has displeased you, I will go back home." But the angel of the Lord said to Balaam, "Go with the men, but you may say only what I tell you." So Balaam went on with the princes of Balak. Okay, so that's the end of the story of the talking ass. But it's important for this piece of comedy that's coming up that Balaam does get to the plains of Moab, because we need to hear how this interchange happens between the will of God and the will of man. When Balak heard that Balaam was coming, he went out to meet him at the boundary city, Moab, on the Arnon and at the end of the Moabite territory. And he said to Balaam, "I sent an urgent summons to you. Why did you not come to me?" Did you think I could not reward you? Balaam answered him, well, I have come to you after all, but what power have I to say anything? I can speak only what God puts in my mouth. Then Balaam went with Balak, and they came to Kiriath Huzoth. Here Balak slaughtered oxen and sheep, and sent portions to Balaam and to the princes who were with him. So they're performing a sacred meal as well as sacrifice. Part of the sacrificial sacrifice is that you will burn some of it up to God, but there's also the partaking of all of the people who are parties within the situation to partake of the meal of whatever animal has been slaughtered. So the meal is an important aspect of the sacrificial ceremony. Where am I? 41, thank you. The next morning, Balak took Balaam up on Bamoth Baal, and from there he saw some of the clans. Then Balaam said to Balak, build me 7 altars and prepare 7 bullocks and 7 rams for me here. So he did as Balaam had ordered, offering a bullock and a ram on each altar. And Balak said to him, I have erected the 7 altars and have offered a bullock and a ram on each. I would not want to be an animal at this time. Balaam then said to him, stand here by your holocaust while I go over there. Perhaps the people will meet me, and then I will tell you whatever he lets me see. He went out on the barren height, and God met him. When he had put an utterance in Balaam's mouth, the Lord said to him, go back to Balak and speak accordingly. So he went back to Balak, who was still standing by his holocaust together with all the princes of Moab. Then Balaam gave voice to his oracle. From Aram has Balak brought me here, Moab's king, from the eastern mountains. Come and lay a curse for me on Jacob. Come and denounce Israel. How can I curse whom God has not cursed? How denounce whom the Lord has not denounced? For from the top of the crags I see him, from the heights I behold him. Here is a people that lives apart, hence holy, and does not reckon itself among the nations. Who has ever counted the dust of Jacob, or numbered Israel's wind-borne particles? Beautiful. But the book is called Numbers because of a census. Who has numbered them? You did, yourselves. May I die the death of the just. May my descendants be as many as theirs. What have you done to me? Cried Balak to Balaam. It was to curse my foes that I brought you here. Instead, you have even blessed them. Balaam replied, is it not what the Lord puts in my mouth that I must repeat with care? Okay, you're seeing the dichotomy, the problem that is here between the two of them. One is doing the will of God. The other one wants this power to serve him. Here's the problem. Yes. Well, apparently, Balaam would be something that, Karl Rahner would call the anonymous Christian. He's not part of the community, but he is in tune to the real God. He's not believing in the pagan gods like the Baals or Marduk or... Yeah, but because he's not in a covenantal relationship with Yahweh. He knows who Yahweh is, and he's listening, and he knows how to abide. Remember, Abraham is of the same ilk. Abraham is actually from the city of Ur, of the Chaldeans. He's really far away from all of this. But he just had a natural rapport with God that was never broken. Balaam would fall into that category. And the problem that we see here is that in one story, it was all right for Balaam to go. and see what was going on. It didn't mean he was going to curse them, but God gave him the permission to go. But there is another strand of a story that's preserved that said he did something that God did not want him to do, so he got rebuked and had to answer to his ass. And so, for that reason, either way, we have to get him to the place where we're going to see this classic fight between what God wants and what man wants. And Balaam is just one of those people who naturally gets it. Melchizedek would be another one. It's the reason why Abraham accepts the sacrifice of Melchizedek after the war, the battle that he had. There are just some people who are naturally in tune with the real living God. Balaam is one of them. They're saying he's getting, what's the word we use today? Locutions. He's getting locutions. So he's not seeing God, but God's talking to him. So he's repeating the locution. Yes?
Would he be what we call a mystic?
Yeah. He's a mystic. Okay, we're good to go on? Okay. Where am I? 13, okay. Then Balak said to him, please come with me to another place. If we looked at it from a different angle, maybe you could curse them. From which you can only see some and not all of them. And from there curse them for me. So he brought him to the lookout field on top of Pisgah, where he built 7 altars and offered a bullock and a ram on each of them. Balaam then said to Balak, stand here by your holocaust while I seek a meeting over there. Then the Lord said to Balaam, and having put an utterance in his mouth, he said to him, go back to Balak and speak accordingly. So he went back to Balak, who was still standing by his holocaust together with the princes of Moab. When Balak asked him, what did the Lord say? Balaam gave voice to this oracle. Be aroused, O Balak, and hearken. Give ear to my testimony, O son of Zippor. God is not man that he should speak falsely, nor human that he should change his mind. Is he one to speak and not act, to decree and not fulfill? It is a blessing that I have given to pronounce, a blessing which I cannot restrain. Misfortune is not observed in Jacob, nor misery seen in Israel at this time. This is not an eternal thing. For this party, for this battle, for what's going on in the plains of Moab, no misery for the children of Jacob. The Lord, his God, is with him. With him is the triumph of his king. Have you picked up the meter, how they do poetry at this point? They repeat the same thing twice, using different words. That's where they find their meter. That's where they find their song. I just did it. It is God who brought him out of Egypt, a wild bull of towering might. That's the wild bull of towering might is Israel. No, there is no sorcery against Jacob, nor omen against Israel. It shall yet be said of Jacob and of Israel, behold what God has wrought. Here is a people that springs up like a lioness and stalks forth like a lion. That's about as powerful an image that they can come up with at the time. It rests not till it has devoured its prey and has drunk the blood of the slain. Even though you cannot curse them, said Balak to Balaam, at least do not bless them. But Balaam answered Balak, did I not warn you that I must do all that the Lord tells me? The third oracle. Then Balak said to Balaam, come, let me bring you to another place. Perhaps God will approve of your cursing them for me from there. So he took Balaam to the top of Peor that overlooks Jeshimon. Balaam then said to him, here, build me 7 altars, And here prepare for me 7 bullocks and 7 rams. And Balak did as Balaam had ordered, offering a bullock and a ram on each altar. He must have been a relative of a man who owned a flock of bullocks and a flock of rams. Balaam, however, perceiving that the Lord was pleased to bless Israel, did not go aside as before to seek omens, but turned his gaze toward the desert. When he raised his eyes and saw Israel encamped tribe by tribe, the Spirit of God came upon him, and he gave voice to his oracle. The utterance of Balaam, son of Beor, the utterance of the man whose eye is true, the utterance of one who hears what God says and knows what the Most High knows, of one who sees what the Almighty sees, enraptured and with eyes unveiled. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your encampments, O Israel. They are like gardens beside a stream, like the cedars planted by the Lord. His wells shall yield free-flowing waters. He shall have the sea within reach. His king shall rise higher than Agag, is what shows up in other texts here. And Agag is a play on word. Agag is a place, but it also means roof. He'll rise higher than the roof, is what's being said here. And his royalty shall be exalted. It is God who brought him out of Egypt, a wild bull of towering might. He shall devour the nations like grass. Their bones he shall strip bare. He lies crouching like a lion, or like a lioness, who shall arouse him. Blessed is he who blesses you, and cursed is he who curses you. Balak beat his palms together in a blaze of anger and said to him, "It was a curse, my foes, it was to curse my foes that I summoned you. Yet 3 times you have even blessed them instead." When he's beating his hands, he's going like this. Nope, no deal, no gold for me. You're not getting anything, no deal. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. That's the image. Be off at once, then to your home. I promise to reward you richly, but the Lord has withheld the reward from you. Balaam replied to Balak, Did I not warn you the very messengers? Did I not warn the very messengers whom you sent me? Even if Balak gave me his house full of silver and gold, I could not of my own accord do anything, good or evil, contrary to the command of the Lord. Whatever the Lord says, I must repeat. The 4th oracle. Now this one's just a freebie. But now that I am about to go to my own people, let me first warn you what this people will do to your people in the days to come. Then Balaam gave voice to his oracle. The utterance of Balaam, son of Beor, the utterance of the man whose eye is true, the utterance of one who hears what God says and knows what the Most High knows, of one who sees what the Almighty sees, enraptured and with eyes unveiled. I see him, though not now. I behold him, though not near. A star shall advance from Jacob, and a staff shall rise from Israel. All right, our church fathers will see Jesus in this. He's basically talking about David here, but our church fathers see Jesus. That shall smite the brows of Moab, and the skulls of all the Shuthites, till Edom is dispossessed, and no fugitives is left in Seir. Israel shall do valiantly, and Jacob shall overcome his foes. Upon seeing Amalek, Balaam gave voice to his oracle. First of the peoples was Amalek, but his end is to perish forever. Upon seeing the Kenites, he gave voice to his oracle. Your abode is enduring, O smith. The Kenites are believed to bring metallurgy to this area. So the beginning of the Iron Age would be brought by the Kenites. Your abode is enduring, O smith, and your nest is set on a cliff. Yet destined for burning, even as I watch, are your inhabitants. Upon seeing, he gave voice to his oracle. We don't know upon who he was seeing. We lost the name of what group of people ready to go to war with Jacob, with Moses and the people, that he was given this oracle. But apparently it's connected to the descendants of Ishmael. Alas, who shall survive of Ishmael to deliver his people from the hands of the Kittim? When they have conquered Asher and conquered Eber, he too shall perish forever. Then Balaam set out on his journey home, and Balak also went on his way. Okay, I think we have enough time to get to the end of 25. Worship of Baal and Peor. Now, this is actually going to be a problem. This is closer to reality, to the truth of things, than they let on in other areas. But they're making it sound like it's a one solitary issue that happened at one time before they went on. This is what's going to plague them generation after generation, about remaining their own people, about remaining purely in a relationship with Yahweh. While Israel was living as Shittim, the people degraded themselves by having illicit relations with the Moabite women. They were marrying the women, or they were visiting the priestesses of their Canaanite practices, which is to have ceremonial sex. These then invited the people to the sacrifices of their God, and the people ate of the sacrifices and worshiped their God. When Israel thus submitted to the rites of Baal of Peor, the Lord's anger flared up against Israel, and he said to Moses, gather all the leaders of the people and hold a public execution of the guilty ones before the Lord, that his blazing wrath may be turned away from Israel. So Moses told the Israelite judges, each of you shall kill those of his men who have submitted to the rites of Baal of Peor. All right, so this is what should have happened. This is how the priest said. The priest basically saying, we should have done this back when we were living in Peor. I doubt that it really happened. The real issue is just intermarriage, which is what gets Solomon into trouble later on. Zeal of Phinehas. Yet a certain Israelite came and brought in a Midianite woman to his clansmen in the view of Moses, of the whole Israelite community, while they were weeping at the entrance of the meeting tent. They made this one story. They were two different stories. They're weeping for all of the people they had to execute because of sleeping with the women of Moab. And here comes this certain Israelite man sneaking Sally through the alley. To his clansmen in the view of Moses and the whole Israelite communing, while they were weeping at the entrance of the meeting tent. When Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, saw this, he left the assembly and, taking a lance in hand, followed the Israelites into his retreat, where he pierced the pair of them, the Israelite and the woman. Thus the slaughter of the Israelites was checked, but only after 24,000 had died. So this is because Phinehas showed zeal for Yahweh. That's what stayed the hand of more people dying within the city, the tent city. Then the Lord said to Moses, Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, has turned my anger from the Israelites by his zeal for my honor among them. That is why I did not put an end to the Israelites for the offense to my honor. Announce, therefore, that I hereby give him my pledge of friendship, which shall be for him and for his descendants after him the pledge of an everlasting priesthood, because he was zealous on behalf of his God, and thus made amends for the Israelites. The Israelites slain with the Midianite woman was Zimri, son of Salu, prince of an ancestral house of the Simeonites. The slain Midianite woman was Cosbi, son of Zur, who was head of a clan, an ancestral home in Midian. Vengeance of the Midianites. The Lord then said to Moses, "Treat the Midianites as enemies and crush them, for they have been your enemies by their wily dealings with you as regards Peor and as regards their kinswoman Cosbi, the daughter of the Midianite prince, who was killed at the time of the slaughter because of Peor." Okay, we did not do bad, boys and girls. We got to the end of chapter 25. So next week, we'll be able to move on. Yes?
Balaam was a man who knew God.
Who?
Balaam.
Balaam. He was a man who knew God, yeah.
He was not Jewish.
But he was not a Semite. He was not one of the former slaves that were in Egypt. He was just a person who naturally knew who the real God was and abided by it. So, I'm sorry? Yeah, that's the only story we have of him. He goes back to his place just outside of modern Damascus and is very happy. All right, thank you very much, and I will see you next week.